Hello, everybody. In today's episode of the Penny Lane podcast, Blayne and Kate are joined by Ilan Hall. They discuss behind the scenes of Top Chef, his journey starting restaurants, and the process of creating Ilan's show, Knife Fight. A big thank you to our sponsors, TrendSpider, Personify app, and Last Bottle Wines. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Enjoy.
Ilan, hi. Welcome to the Penny Lane podcast.
Hello.
So
I'm glad to be here.
These are my favorite episodes, but when I just DM people that I really like and ask them to come on the podcast. So we're absolutely thrilled to have you. I've already complimented your eyewear, continuing to be a big fan of it.
Thank you.
So if you were going to give someone, let's say, an elevator pitch of who you are, could you hit us with that?
Sure. I'm a chef that has been cooking for over 2 decades, worked in lots of restaurants around the country and a couple around the world, won a couple of contests, and produced some television.
Perfect. This is all sounds
won a couple of contests. So casual.
Fascinating to us.
I mean,
Kate is a food influencer.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't have the professional chops. Just like to eat food and like to cook it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, some of the most the best inspiration is coming from people like that on social media. I mean, I follow so many accounts. Nobody's a professional chef, but people are doing weird and interesting stuff, and the connection that you have to what they're doing at home is pretty amazing.
Do you have any favorite accounts off the top of your brain?
Yeah, most of them were professional chefs at some point. But now that I think about it, no, like a cook named Matt is great. Top of my head, shoot, of course,
That's
I say
when it
something
makes you
and I
go
have nothing to back it up with.
sure.
I don't know. Salt Tank is great. I don't think he's a professional. I actually don't know a lot about a lot of these people, so maybe they are all professional chefs. But I just like flicking through reels on Instagram, and it aggregates a lot of cooking stuff. So
It's
pretty
addicting.
cool.
For sure.
What's that other kid? That guy? Kid, I say kid, but he's an adult. Lives in New York, kind of cool, hipstery looking. I don't know. There's lots of great stuff.
Cool history looking in New York is a wide pool.
He just moved back to New York from somewhere else. He makes lots of dips.
I'm always in for a dip. Love a good dip.
Kate loves a dip. Kate also loves
I'll figure it out before we're done.
Yeah.
Cheese dips on any apps.
Yeah.
I'm in. Count me in.
Kate can throw together a cheese plate, the likes of which, I mean, I've never seen professionally done. So much.
Anytime Blayne comes to visit, it's a requirement. It's like I know I have to go get the cheeses.
Kate, where do you live?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
So grew up in Atlanta. Okay. I don't know if Blayne explained this. We're sisters. But I live in Charlotte.
Kate, you're also coming to us live from the new house. It looks beautiful.
I am.
Beautiful.
This isn't my most picture perfect corner, but wanted to keep it tame.
Yeah.
There's lots of boxes around still.
So I usually do this podcast with Kate's husband. Yeah, but first of all, he's left me. There was a gaping hole in the podcast. Thank you, Justin. And second of all, I bring Kate on.
It's a rift in the family.
I bring Kate on for anyone I feel like she'd really like to meet. So here we are.
Yeah. The second she said this, I was like, I'm in. I am there.
So.
Well, thank you. It's great. It's great to meet you.
So I'm a huge an OG Top Chef fan. So that's how, I got to know you. Watched your season, loved it, rewatched it when I was pregnant with my daughter, who is 6 years old now. And very funny story. But as I was watching it, you were by far my favorite that whole season. And I really like your name, which is funny since I just asked you how to pronounce it. But I spent about a week trying to decide if so my name's Blayne, which is a male name and I also wanted to name my daughter a male name. So I was like wondering if I could name my daughter Ilan, and spent
Wow.
I mean, not like after you, but I was like, that's a cool name. So spent like a good while sort of going back and forth. And what I like about it is that it looks like it's Llan.
Yeah.
Lots
of people think it is.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to me. And then you're like, no, it's an I. Like it's so tricky and fun. I really, really like it.
You said you were going to name your daughter that,
I've been called,
I think he instantly was like
no, when people say it out, they've said that people think that it's two L's. I've been called Jan lots of times because it's like
Jan,
the Spanish pronunciation of double L. I don't like that one.
I think I looked up. I'm not psychotic. I just was. I mean, when you name a child, you throw around names. Yeah,
of course.
But I looked it up, and the meaning I feel like is something fairly masculine. Do you know the meaning of your name?
It means, in Hebrew it means young tree.
Oh,
like a sapling.
I liked that. Never mind.
It's not masculine or feminine. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah. It's still a great name. I ended up naming her Quinn.
Thanks.
Which I think is sort of in the same vein.
That's also a great name.
Yeah. So Quinn, but great name. So
that's great.
I think my main thing that I admire about you is your creativity. It's just phenomenal. And we talk about that so much on the podcast. I'm a painter. Kate cooks and creates content and writes and is exceptionally creative. And a big vein, I guess, through the podcast is just being creative in all that you do and speaking with your own voice. We've been really, really talking about that a lot with trading. I like trading because it is a way to navigate a world of endless possibilities and find your own way through it, which I equate to my paintings. Like there's literally a blank canvas and you can do anything to it, and having to sort of put things together in a way that works, I feel like is the most like magical thing a person can do. And you are a master at it. And I saw it so much during Top Chef. Like,
thank you.
It was just beautiful the way that you created. And then also with Knife Fight, like what a beautiful, not only the show was aesthetically beautiful and the concept was amazing and you drew from your own experience and you brought on people you admired, but the creative challenge that you presented people was just astonishing. Astonishing. I really loved that show. I love watching people have to create in real time. So,
thank you. I loved making it. I mean, that was one of the things about. Thank you so much. That was way too kind. that whole thing. I really appreciate it. But no, with Knife Fight, I mean, that was kind of what was so amazing to me about it, and not just forcing people to work with these crazy time constraints, but the fact that there was nothing on the table except their pride, and it was unbelievable to me how amazing the food was. Really, when I'm, you see Top Chef and there's hours to plan when you get presented with a challenge, just because of cameras have to set, and there's just of all the process. But from the beginning with doing this, we were like, it has to be as real time as humanly possible. It really, like, once people are going and you see them running to cook, they're cooking, and like that's it. So, sometimes people have 3-4 minutes to think of something, but that's different than when you're going to a location with, Padma introduces the thing and then you get to go shopping before. And then, there's a whole process to it. Not to say there's anything wrong with that. I mean, Top Chef is great. It's a great show. It's great. It's done wonderful things for me and for a lot of friends and a lot of people that I know. But I just, my restaurant was like kind of dingy and weird and cool and lots of broken equipment. And that was kind of, we wanted to sort of be as true to it as possible.
It was
Explain to
super.
me more about like dingy and weird, and like, can you tell us some more about your restaurant? That sounds so interesting.
Okay, yeah. So the first restaurant I opened, called the Gorbals, it was inside of the Alexandria Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, which at one point was this grand hotel, sort of a la the Plaza in New York, and then kind of fell in hard times, and sort of became a low income housing building, but still had all this, had these incredible people that lived there. So it, gave character to this old building. So it's like the juxtaposition of what downtown Los Angeles was and what it is now. And there are all these sort of, and it was inside of the building. So you had to sort of find it, which was probably terrible for business for us, especially in the beginning. But there was something about it that was just like, kind of spoke to me, and it was, I could afford it at the time. I mean, I couldn't really afford anything, but
Yeah.
opening a restaurant with $60,000 is like pretty remarkable. Even 15 years ago, 12, 14 years ago when I did it, and it just kind of like, doing the competitions with Knife Fight, it was just sort of hanging around with chefs at the restaurant, because a lot of chefs used to come in, and we would hang out and we would talk shit, and we would just sort of challenge each other to things, and like it kind of snowballed into something else, and came to a point where a friend of mine reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we're trying to pitch TV shows." I'm like, "Well, we kind of do this thing. What do you think?" And we shot like a really sort of rough and ready reel and brought it to some networks, and then it got picked up.
And it was
So it's kind of like a weird. It doesn't really happen like that, I don't think.
on Esquire.
Yeah. So when we pitched it, it was called G4 at the time. It was a network called G4 that was about sort of like video games and stuff, and they were doing in the middle of a rebrand, and so we kind of like caught the wave. We were the first original show on the network.
Would you do
That's so
it
awesome though that
again?
you didn't have to. Oh, go ahead.
No, no. Who's first? Would I do it again? Of
Yeah.
course, I would do it again. I would love to do it again. I mean, we only stopped making the show because the network went away,
Yeah.
um, for whatever reason that I don't, whatever. I mean, I would love to do it. It's just it's hard. We did 4 full seasons of it, so we have like something like 78 episodes, some 75 episodes, something like a lot. It's actually a lot. I didn't realize it, but because the first season was 18, second was 24, then we did 15 and 15. So it's a lot of content. I don't think it got the biggest audience it could have, on something like a Netflix or a Hulu or something else. But I'd love to do it again. I mean, I'd love to do something in the same vein. I'd love to, because, the chefs that I had on it, it's funny because I think there was one year where we had like four people that were either 4 or 5 people that were either nominated or won a James Beard Award that year. Nothing to do with us. It just happened to be the caliber of people that we would get, because people loved it, because it was actually fun. It was tense in those moments, but it wasn't. It was a pleasure for them, because it was chefs cooking for chefs, just sort of hanging out and talking shit.
That's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say was so great about the fact that it's like you were already doing it. Like you didn't have to over engineer something for TV. Like it was so natural to what you're
No.
already doing, which is so rare.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, because we always like molded everything after, like, there was a certain point when we were shooting the first episode where they were telling one of the chefs, the people, the producers were telling people, and I have a great relationship with everybody on the show, but they were telling the chefs to slow down or to do this, and I was like, no, 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 it's got to come out now, it's got to come out hot. And that was one of the things where we had to get it hot. Like, that was an absolute, because having experience doing stuff, you make a dish and it could be 2 hours before someone eats it, and then
Oof.
the original intention of it, even if it's something that's can stay warm for a while or whatever, it's completely lost. That's why it's funny on Top Chef, and I think that they do a lot more to make it aesthetically pleasing now. But on Top Chef, we would always give, when we do a challenge, we would always give the worst, because we always had to make a plate for camera.
Mm-hmm.
We'd always give the worst one for camera because because we weren't being judged on that one. So if you look at, I've watched my season, and some of the plates that go to the camera people look disgusting. Like things have fallen, sauce is all dried up on the side of the plate because they didn't really, like, it was a newer show. They didn't have people that were in charge of making it look beautiful and whatever. And so it was kind of like, and on Night Fight we would do a beauty plate also for the camera, but it would be like that out, this out, like it was just go. And then they would shoot it really quick. They had a little thing in the corner where they would take it and shoot it, and then
Like it's
don't
like, this
really
is real life and this is how it would work, and the camera crew just happens to be
yeah,
here. Like, we're not accommodating you. You get to be
totally,
a fly on the
no,
wall.
totally. It was a huge like, it was an absolute like necessity for me.
Top Chef still struggles with that. Like the beauty plate, sometimes things that fall, it like does not look great, and then you see
Yeah.
the plate on the table, which looks gorgeous. Anyway,
Yeah.
I have noticed that. I also am so glad you
It's always.
brought it up, because I wanted to ask you, what is the time that elapses between, like, on a quick fire? Do you literally all finish at the same time, and then if you're the last person to serve, your food's been waiting that whole time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when I was on it, I don't know if they've changed. I mean, what are they on, season 19 now?
Yeah.
Season something like that. Yeah, I mean, when we did it, absolutely, we'd have to finish our dish and then just wait. And it sometimes would take a really long time. But I mean, the quick fires, they would eat it much more quickly than on a regular challenge, unless it was something like Restaurant Wars, or there were certain challenges where we would be serving directly to people, or if it was like I remember in one of the early episodes we did like we had two teams and we split up and we were doing like a food event. And so people were just coming and eating. We were serving people over the course of like 2 hours or something. So like that was, you're getting fresh food. But yeah, most challenges, it would wait for such a long time. And I felt bad for Gail, Tom, and Padma.
It's got to be brutal on both sides.
Gail,
So hard for them.
my husband has such a big crush on Gail. He's like, God, let's put a smoke show constantly.
With good reason.
Yeah, he likes her so much.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, but also Blayne,
Yeah.
on the flip side, let's talk about Tom.
Oh God, I loved him so much. So good looking. So
Not
yeah.
like Jimmy is the only one that has a crush on that show.
No, of course no. I'm like watching Last Chance Kitchen just for extra Tom time. He just has aged so well with the show. He's just, I could stop now.
It's a real gem.
He really is. Yeah, I'm glad that Gail has stuck around. And, Padma has really grown into her role.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
I mean, our season, she was, it was her first season also. So it was kind of like, we didn't know what we were doing. She didn't know. I mean, she knew what she was there for, but it was, I think for everybody, it sort of takes time to figure things out. Even Tom. I mean, Tom, I worked for Kraft before I went on Top Chef, and I got fired from Kraft. But Tom, if you would have said to me who would be sort of leading a cooking competition show, Tom, or anything on television, Tom wouldn't be the person. And not because he had a hard time talking, but he was just very sort of, reserved to himself. He wasn't a really outgoing person, and it's just the nature of who he was. So it's kind of it felt kind of weird that he was going to be like the head guy in the show.
Gotta turn it on for the cameras.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think I think the cameras just liked who he was. Ultimately, that sort of his, he's stern. People take him seriously. He's respected, and he's no bullshit. And I think that, that kind of, I don't know, that worked well for him. That worked in his favor, and that worked well for the show, because it gave it this like sort of backbone of credibility. And he, as a chef, he's one of those people that have huge respect for, because he got 3 New York Times stars by the time he was 23. It was like he was very established and a force to be reckoned with. So yeah, he's great.
Irrational exuberance? When it comes to killer wine at drastically low prices, 30 to 70% off retail and free shipping, we live for that here at Last Bottle Wines. Whether you went long or short on GameStop, you'll need a glass of something terrifically tasty, and we've got the goods. Last Bottle is a daily wine site based in Napa, California. One wine every day at Black Swan event prices, usually 30 to 70% off until poof, it's gone. Whether you're a pound the table type, think ultra crisp, quaffable Sauvignon Blanc, or a dividend aristocrat, Burgundy, or Napa Cab, there simply is no better place to buy wine on the web, and they always have free shipping. Last Bottle has a deal just for Penny Lane listeners. Use promo code PENNY10 to save 10% on your next order with Last Bottle. The code is good for one order and one order only.
They opened a craft here in Atlanta for a very short amount of time, and I love Tom. So we went, and I had an experience that I've never had before in any kind of, not even like a McDonald's or whatever. I ordered, I think they were new potatoes. They were some kind of small potato, and I bit into them, and it was like they had been covered in super glue, like the skin glued itself to my front teeth. I couldn't get the skin off, and I was like, and you think I'm in craft, this is my problem. So I kept trying to eat them, and but I couldn't get the skin off. And then finally I told the waitress, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And the restaurant closed very soon after that.
It's all because of those potatoes.
Did Tom come out and apologize to you personally?
Unfortunately, he wasn't there that night, so...
So you might have actually engineered the situation to get him to come out of the kitchen.
But you know what? Didn't tarnish his reputation in my mind or heart at all. I'm like, that was that chef's problem. Not Tom. Tom
Couldn't have
didn't
been
make
Tom.
those potatoes. So I did a quick Wikipedia on you. So I wanted to go back and rewatch your whole season just to be extra prepared. But my kids both came down with COVID on Sunday, so unfortunately I have
I'm
not.
Sorry.
Oh, they're fine. But I was not able.
I know, mine just got over it. He's fine too.
Yeah, wasn't able to devote all the hours to watch your season. But on Wikipedia, they did reference a head shaving incident that I really have no recollection of. Do you mind walking us through that?
Oh, wow. Sure.
Okay.
You don't remember that? How do you not remember that?
I don't know. Tell me.
That was the big...
Maybe it'll jog my memory. It said it was the biggest scandal in Top Chef history. So clearly...
It was. So what happened was it was our last challenge. We finished it, and the DP of the show said, hey, if you guys are getting up to some antics, take this camera and just make sure you shoot it. And so I'm like, cool. They gave us some fancy, camera, showed me how to use it. And then, we sort of started drinking and thought it would be a funny idea to shave Marcel's head, to shave Elia's head, to shave my whole thing was if Elia shaves her head, I'm going to shave my head, because she had this giant, beautiful locks of hair. And so, with lots of situations when alcohol's involved and you sort of are not thinking and you're very young and, your brain isn't fully developed, you do dumb things. And I think the whole idea was meant to be almost like a silly jackass prank, and it got out of hand. And so I shaved my head, Elia shaved her head, and then Marcel was sort of the victim of something. And it was none of it was meant to be this mean, evil thing. We were just being ridiculous. But when you don't think and your inhibitions are lowered, you do dumb things sometimes. But regrettable on my part for sure.
I'm so sorry I brought that up.
No, it's fine.
Blaine did not know what she
No,
was
I
asking
listen,
about.
listen. No, 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 we had no. Listen. It was. I'm glad. Marcel and I are in a really good place now. I really, I think he's done incredible things. He's a brand new dad. He just got married in the past couple of years. Like he's doing some really, really amazing stuff. Um, and I think that, you're in this crazy situation and that's so unnatural. And you're a kid, I'm used to being a line cook and just like working. And then all of a sudden you don't have your phone, you don't have your freedom, not in a negative way, but you're sort of taken care of at every moment, and you kind of lose your head a bit, and you sort of lose perspective on what reality is temporarily, because we're for 6 weeks we're walked to a place to cook, which we know how to do, and then we're sort of the only people that we can sort of talk to is each other. And so when there's tension and when there's a competition involved, it kind of exacerbates all of that. So
How old were you on your season of Top Chef?
20, it was 24 when it was over, 23 or 24, something like that.
Gosh, it's so young.
Surprised you didn't shave everyone's
Yeah,
head.
very young.
23?
Yeah. Everyone gets a pass.
Yeah, I mean, I was, it was very, listen, but I also had a ton of fun. Like it was a great time. For the most part, I made some really, really good friends that I'm still very close with. I'm really close with Elia. She helped me open up my restaurant. I'm really close with, I still talk to Betty. I still talk to Mike Midgley. Like a lot of people that were on the show, I'm still close with. Still see Josie, who was on the show. She lives in Miami. So I kind of still talk to Sam Talbot, who's in California now. And he's about to open a place too in LA. So, it's a good group of people, and sort of like a weird fraternity whenever I talk to other people that were on the show. You know, because we all have this weird common bond. And I've become really close with a lot of people that were on other seasons, like Dale Talday.
Yeah, Dale. Love Dale.
Dale's amazing. He's a really good friend. I've traveled with Dale. CJ Jacobson, who from season 3, who's 6'8" and 3/4. But he actually, I was just at his bachelor party in Montana, and he's getting married in September. So it's like, he's super successful. He's opened up tons of restaurants in the Chicago and Austin, and with this giant restaurant group. So there's so many success stories out of it. I mean, there's, I don't know, 175 chefs that have come through the show already, something like that. More.
Do you know Richard
Probably
Blaze?
more, 200. I know Richard Blaze pretty well. Yeah.
You two remind me of each other. I hope that's okay to say.
Sure. No, I'm friends with Richard. He's great. No, Richard's great. I've been on his podcast a couple times.
Oh.
But Richard's great, super talented. He's incredibly successful right now. He's doing television shows on Fox.
Sure.
So he's doing great. I'd like to see him when he's free. He's never free to see me, but
I really liked that.
Got a busy schedule.
I really liked that Richard didn't win and then went sort of nuts on self-bettering himself or whatever, and then came back and won. I like that. I like that in a person, to be like, I'm going to take this more seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's a pretty amazing person. He's really talented. I'm glad that he sort of found his culinary niche, because I think it's hard to create an identity for yourself, especially when so many of us have, people always say, what's your specialty? What's your specialty? But a lot of people have worked in so many different places. You know how to cook a lot of things. So really finding your voice, as a chef is hard. When I opened the Gorbals, the idea was like a mix between my mom and my father's roots. My mom was born in Israel and my dad's from Scotland, which doesn't really make sense until you realize that you can sort of apply any rules and as long as you know how to make delicious food, you can sort of fit it into any category.
Totally.
Doesn't make sense, but you made it make sense.
Exactly. And so that's what I think, I think about the way I cook right now at home, or if I'm cooking for events, like what are the ingredients that I use most? Most of them come from an Asian pantry, but most of my food doesn't taste that way. So it's like using miso in Italian tomato sauce makes sense. Not that I'm the first person to do it, but I'm saying like you use all the tools in your tool chest to try and do the best work and the most delicious things that you can,
Do
you
you
know.
ever
And I
get
think that that's yeah,
do you ever get burnout when you're cooking at all? Like, do you ever find yourself making the same things and feel like you need to shake it up? Or like how do you keep it fresh?
absolutely, absolutely. I was actually in a weird way. It was kind of COVID was helpful and difficult also because I used to get inspiration by traveling. I would travel with with friends, with family, a couple times a year, to Europe, to somewhere else in the country. To I would try and sort of change it up to get inspiration. And then COVID happened, and it was just like everything was internal. And so I started making these, like I had no intention of doing cooking videos on Instagram, but I started doing these cooking videos, and they were just sort of out of like a fuck it attitude. Like, I think even in my first one that I did, it was just like I said there was something I said where I was like, throw this with this. Who the fuck cares? It was kind of like this. We're all stuck inside. We all don't know what's
It's
happening, and it
casual.
was just like a way to. But even more than that, it was like, let's try this. Let's just be super weird. And so, that's where I enjoy things. I mean, when I cook at home, I cook relatively traditionally, but uh, when I'm trying stuff out, like I did a really cool dinner um, for the Seafood and Wine Festival last year in Miami, which is a vegan plant-based food and wine festival, and two friends of mine from New York came out with me, and we did this like 5-course plant-based meal. And it was two Michelin star chefs that are not vegan. I'm not. I cook vegan a lot, but I'm not. I'm not. And we sort of did this really cool, weird menu. And so like things like that, where you have these like restrictions, kind of make you be more creative, sort of force you to be creative in different ways, so that you can sort of apply that in slightly different ways.
So I really was so fascinated by what you just said about finding your voice. I've also,
Hmm.
everyone who listens to the podcast has heard me say it a ton of times, but and I talked about it in the beginning of the episode as well, about just you have to be able to know how to do all the things and break all or know all the rules before you can like know exactly how to break them and which ways to break them and things. And I'm wondering like how much of the show sort of forced you into a situation where you found a perspective, or did you already have that going in?
You mean Top Chef?
Uh-huh.
Um, well, being a cook anyway, and being working in restaurants, you have to sort of live in that world anyway, because you've got a boss that's in charge of, that's created the recipes and created the concept of the place, and you're not really supposed to go outside of their rules, but you can sort of work within their guidelines to make things taste a little bit better every single time. So, you have this sort of competitive thing. But in Top Chef, it was kind of the same thing where, you're in these boxes, and really the only thing, because we weren't allowed to have recipe books or anything like that. So we just came with what we knew. So my approach to it was sort of, what do I know that is the most delicious? And there were a couple of recipes from places that I've worked, from people that I've worked with, where I was like, I'm going to bring these out at certain points, and I'm going to save them strategically, so that even if I don't win this, it's got to be so delicious that I can't get kicked off for it. So there were like, 5 things like that, where even if it didn't really work exactly, it was still, would knock their socks off, so that it wasn't a thing. And so there were, there's some that I changed a little bit, but there were some that, and I got in a lot of trouble actually for that. Not in real trouble, but in, people would judge me because they're like, you're using stuff that you've learned. I'm like, there's no way that people are coming into this with like brand new recipes, brand new combinations of flavor on the spot. I mean, sometimes people did that. Sometimes I've done that. But for the most part, you need to have like killers in your arsenal that just at a certain, like there was the one right before the finale when we went to Hawaii, there was a dish that we were doing at the restaurant I was working at. And I didn't know if I would win it, but I knew that I couldn't get kicked off, that it would get me in the finale if I did this because it was so delicious. It's funny because I ended up winning that challenge, but because of the head shaving thing, they didn't say that there was a winner for that episode, even though in judges table, they told me, I'm not supposed to say this, but they told me that I won.
Giving us all the secrets.
So it was kind of like secret. I mean, that's all I can. No, there were certain things, like there was a corn dish that my friend Liz came up with, who was the sous chef at Casamono, that when I applied it to the what was it? TGI Fridays challenge. It was like episode 3 or something, where you get a dish on TGI Fridays. The challenge was explained to us before sort of, Padma had the whole breakdown for us. And so we had to go shopping. And so I made a dish that was just grilled corn with smoked butter. It was very, very good. But like, it wasn't a main dish, but it didn't really have to be. But I knew that even if it was so delicious that I couldn't get kicked off. So like, that was kind of like at a certain point, I sort of realized, I'm like, okay, this is my game. Like, and so it was more strategy than talent. I think having good taste is one thing, but really sort of, I definitely wasn't the best cook on that.
Did you feel like there was a point, like if you were going into Top Chef with this like awesome strategy of, even if I'm not going to win, I'm going to make what's most delicious and like I can't get kicked off for it. Did you feel like there was a point at any point after the show that you really felt like you found your voice or your angle?
Yeah, I think it was after episode 5, which I won episode 5. And it was a leftover challenge where we were in a restaurant that Michelle Bernstein was operating for a while. And we had to take leftovers from the restaurant and repurpose it into a new dish that would sort of be delicious. Now, they weren't super thrilled about everybody. There were other things that they wish we would have used, but I took leftover risotto and like turned it into this paella thing with soft shell crab. And that was like sort of the type of food that I loved eating at that moment, like crispy, crunchy rice with creamy interior and like seafood and saffron. And so it was like, once I made that and they were like over the moon about it, I was like, okay, I think I can do this. It gave me sort of a bit of confidence. But then also I did another stupid thing throughout the whole competition where is cursing okay? Would you prefer me not cursing?
I cannot curse. You like
it. No, but I would fuck off for quickfire challenges. Like I never took them seriously. It was always like a place for me to like be silly or make a joke. Not that I didn't take cooking seriously, but like to me it was such a ridiculous, the quickfires were so ridiculous, right, that it was like I might as well just like throw something at the wall and see what happens. And it's funny because in that same episode that I won for this one sort of clam and noodles dish, I also was the worst in the quickfire because it was like it was like a chicken liver covered in chocolate. It was a chocolate challenge. And like, I was just like, what the hell? Delicious. Let me see. And Eric Repair was like, this. He had a really funny line when he was describing it. He's like, he didn't understand it and he didn't like it. And he's like, this is for instance, something I would never serve in a restaurant. Like, damn, it's like, it's a very polite way of saying this is terrible.
It's like, hey, this sucks.
Yeah. But so that was kind of my strategy, was take them seriously. And like some I did well, some I really didn't do well, but I was lucky enough to stick through and then finish.
Probably kept you a little bit more sane though if you treated the quickfires as like a playground or a creative outlet, got to have some fun and then take it seriously.
Yeah. It was like there was no. It's so weird because I feel like Knife Fight is almost like a quickfire challenge. Like the whole idea of it, that the thing that I did the worst on Top Chef is the thing that I turned into a TV show, which is kind of silly. But
it's ironic.
I don't know. It's very ironic.
Sometimes they do think, or actually, season 19, which I'm watching with my son, which is fascinating actually to like watch it with him, because he's like a very magical, creative little boy. But his take on it is just so fascinating. But one of the quickfire challenge was make a biscuit. And usually, like, as I'm sure anyone on the show does, you hear the challenge and I'm like, oh, I mean, I cook a lot. I'm like, oh, well, I would do this, this, and this, and then make a biscuit. And I'm like, what if you like can't? Like, what if you're like, don't know? Like biscuits, you have to have,
I do that?
Like the butter has to be so cold, and and I'm like, does everyone know? And then I like turned to Oliver and I was like, Oliver, I got to teach you how to make a biscuit in case you're ever on the show. Like you can make like whatever you want,
Life
but like,
skills.
now we got to learn how to make a biscuit. But
I like how that's how you're raising him, just in case he's on Top Chef.
He really wants to be
Those are his only guardrails.
Yeah, he really wants to be on Kids Baking Championship, and I'm like not for it. I'm like, because I don't like to bake, so I'm like, I can't.
Why?
I can't like get behind
It's
this.
like, let's go for the hard stuff immediately.
Yeah, but if you ever need to make a biscuit, this is something we're gonna have to really tackle. Last night
funny.
he determined that Jimmy doesn't know how to like flip burgers properly. So he's 8 and he's like, from now on I'm on the grill. And I'm like, thank God, because Dad can't.
That kid has had opinions about food his entire life. Like the descriptive words he uses for food since he was like 5. It's absurd.
He was just born that way. I've got him drinking this like non-alcoholic spritzer now that's incredibly bitter and like hard for me to even drink, and he's like, oh, I love it. I mean, he's just magical.
He's a worldly old soul.
I know.
He sounds great.
He's the best. In that vein, what are you doing to educate your son
about cooking?
Eating, anything.
Eating is the lost cause for him right now. He has
struggle.
no interest. I mean, it's so weird because my wife and I, when he was a baby, I made all of his food, and we very like purposefully put strong flavored things in his food, like, you know, instead of just doing beef, we would do lamb. We would do, you know, in making like his puree food, because we wanted him to be comfortable with sort of gamier flavors and sort of bigger, bolder things by the time he was older. And he just, at a certain point, he's like, no, I don't want that. And he's gotten better, but he won't eat French fries. Like he won't eat hot dogs. Hamburgers are like in the last 2 years that are brand new. And if he has a hamburger, no ketchup, just like cheese, mayo. That's it.
He is missing out.
So like he's missing out on a lot, and it hurts our hearts a bit, because, you know, we cook at home, so
I will say cheese and mayonnaise, add lettuce. That's my favorite way to do a burger, and I will die on that hill.
Hey, I love those things. It's just that can't be it. Bagel with melted butter is like he's so excited about, you know, and that's
simplistic.
It. Like a plain bagel with melted butter. So, you know, he'll try things if we sort of beg and plead, make deals with him. But cooking, on the other hand, I've tried to sort of, he gets excited about things that he sees people cooking in movies. So like, you know, Ratatouille, of course, we did a whole thing with that. And he has fun. I mean, he likes that part. We have a garden at our house, and, you know, he's come with me and like sort of pick stuff, try and teach him what things are. He's done a couple of cooking videos with me, because I think he just likes being in front of a camera. He's sort of a showboat. So, you know, not in a good way, in like a cute way. But he's, you know, I'm trying to teach him how to cook. A friend of ours got him a children's knife set, but like with real blades. Just they don't have sharp points, and with like a finger guard, so you don't like cut your finger. So I'm trying.
Is your wife a chef?
No, not at all. She's in retail fashion stuff.
Cool.
Nothing to do with cooking. She's a great cook, though.
That's awesome. So you guys cook together?
Yeah, we cook together a bit. I mean, I do a majority of it.
When you cook at home, is it like much more simplified, or are you doing grandiose stuff in the kitchen for family cooking?
Oh, I mean, it depends. Sometimes if I get a hair up my ass, then I'll do something like I'll do something fun and weird. One thing I do, like if we're getting good meat or if we're getting, I'll do a lot of sous vide cooking just because it's clean and easy. Sometimes, not all the time, but like, I have restaurant equipment at home, so I've got, vacuum sealers and I've got really nice grills and stuff. So, but when we're upstate, I mean, I do a lot of grilled fish, a lot of grilled meats, nice salads. We've got good lettuces in the garden. So, we really try and eat, in the past few months, I've been really trying to clean up my act in terms of eating because, COVID kind of made me get a lot fatter than I want to be. So
I know about that.
I'm trying to change it, but I mean, I know I'm not alone in that. There's a lot of people in the world that happen to, but the whole world,
everybody.
But no, we're just trying to, eat simply and clean and, base it on good products. At a certain point, we'll probably get a chicken coop, get our own eggs.
Fun.
I don't know.
I had a chicken coop. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun until I had to take care of them one time, and it was not fun for me.
They're pretty gross. So
yeah.
But if you have land,
it was not my bag.
Yeah, we have about 2 acres. I mean, we have, it's nice. When it's legal, I want to get a turkey, like hunt a turkey. I'd like to do that.
I didn't know.
A little bit illegal. Of like gentle hunting. No, just in like when the season's right now. We're not in turkey hunting season right now.
Shows you how much I know about hunting.
So, I mean, every state is different, so it's but yeah, that's I mean, sometimes I go crazy. Like tonight, I'm gonna make lasagna, but I want to make sort of a healthier lasagna with a little bit of bison, a little bit of ground turkey, tomatoes. Simple, nothing crazy.
Could you just like hand us some through the screen? Just like I want to try that lasagna.
Yeah. No, I mean it's gonna be simple. It's just I'm browning the meat. I'm adding tomato product, onions, garlic, cooking it down to like a meat sauce, then layering the sheets of lasagna and baking it, with cheese and baking in the oven. Nothing crazy.
When's the last time you just like popped open a nice can of ragu?
like jarred sauce?
When's the last time you reached in your own?
Yesterday for my son.
Oh, perfect.
Yesterday for my son.
Perfect.
Yeah. I made him pasta and I just used jar sauce. I use jar sauce. Jar sauce is good.
What do we like, Kate? Rayos?
Mm-hmm. Rayos great. Rayos great. It's funny because that's like their big business. They have a restaurant in Vegas and they have a restaurant in Harlem, and I think their sauce nets like $800 million a year.
It's so
crazy.
Good.
It's insane.
It expanded into like frozen foods and like you can get individual portions. It's crazy. They're making a killing.
Yeah. When I go to the grocery store and they don't carry it, I'm like, well, I've got to go to a different store. Or,
this establishment is not up to my standards.
Yeah, there's like 12 in the pantry right now. It's just wartime, COVID time. I don't know.
It's good to have on deck, of course.
Sauce hoarding.
Yeah, we had so interesting when we had the strangest things, like preserved things when COVID started. Like I had a whole ham leg from Spain. Which I ended up eating the whole thing. My wife had like 3 slices of it just because it was there, and like every day I would just walk by it and take a slice off.
Quick snack.
But we just had like, we ate and cooked the most. I mean, there was a point where I was cooking 3 meals a day for our family, making fresh bread, sort of like doing the whole thing because it was kind of, there's never a moment in time where you were able to do that in the past. So we were just kind of hunkering down and we ate really great.
There's so much looking back on COVID that I feel like was such a gift. I mean, me too. I made banana bread. I made so much banana bread that I froze it. Right? So then we're like taking fresh loaves out of the freezer. I'm like, who am I? The pioneer woman? But like we're in a pandemic, you know?
Yeah.
And we had such good family time. Like, I'm no Kate, but I did make a cheese plate every night, talk about gaining some weight. We were like, just every night, a nightly cheese plate. Like, pour your cocktail, have a cheese. I don't know. Yeah, it was great in that way of just uninterrupted time.
No, it was it's true.
Yeah.
One of my favorite COVID memories was Blayne's husband's birthday. Or maybe it was your birthday, Blayne. And you guys came up to Charlotte to visit me, made a cheese board, of course. And then her husband decided, I think we were like, I don't know, we were pretty deep in it at that point. It was still like you weren't going out, but it was like you were exhausted of being in the house. And he was like, all I want is a fireball shot and some nachos. And we went out and got a fireball shot and some nachos. And the next day he was like, oh my God, we all have COVID. This was the worst idea ever. Like, did not think that it was worth it the next day.
But it was fun at the time.
I mean, there was,
That was the night I cut my leg after the fireball shot. And we didn't know how. We're like,
fireball will do that too.
My leg is like bleeding profusely. How did this happen? Fireball.
I feel like we all had those moments where there was a moment where we just like broke out and we're like, I don't care what happens right now. We needed to like have human interaction. And
right.
I think for me, I went to a food and wine festival in South Beach, which, you know, after a few months of sort of restriction and lockdown, at a certain point, Miami was like, all of Florida was like, nope, COVID's over. Yeah. And it was so like shocking coming from New York, where there was so much sort of shutdown and lockdown and like rules. And then you go to this place and you're just like, I feel like I'm doing something against the law.
Yeah. Florida was like a foreign country during COVID.
But it was, I mean, I went to, cause it was one of the only places to sort of work and do events. I think I went to Southern Florida in 2021, like 3-4 times. And I never got COVID. So I don't know.
I think that was maybe the one place that we went during COVID, like on a trip. And we got there and I looked around and I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah. It's so crazy.
Before I let you go, I would kick myself for not asking you to really, this is a bucket list item for me. Could you just like walk me down what a typical day at the Aspen Food and Wine Festival is like?
Sure.
Thank you.
I've been there a bunch of times, so you should go.
I want to go.
Why wouldn't you
badly?
Go next year.
Well,
just buy your ticket.
There's always been like, well, that seems extravagant. And then it's like, you gonna die and not do it? Like, I want to go so bad.
Yeah. So. Okay. I mean, I can only tell you from my perspective. And I've been where I've been invited and I've been where I've kind of like muscled my way in. Which was the thing that me and my friends used to do at food and wine festivals. If I wasn't invited, we would just sort of like show up and figure it out.
How would that work? You just like show up with food, or like you just show up to eat, you mean?
No, I just show up at different events without tickets, without passes, and try and figure out ways to sneak in or just sort of.
It's like,
you know, well, I'd see like Ted Allen. I'd be like, hey, what are you doing here? I'd be like, oh, I'm going to this thing. Come with, you know, it's like you kind of like, you make enough friends after all these that you just sort of like figure out the ways to get in. But so I would get there. You know, it's like the first time after Top Chef, after that, I show up and I'm put up in this like pretty fancy hotel where like all this stuff's happening. And in my hotel room, there's like passes, there's bottles of wine, there's snacks, there's all this stuff. And there's this like welcome celebration for all the people. And it's usually cooked by the chefs from the year prior or something. Sometimes it's Top Chef people, but there's always like this welcome celebration where there's tons of people, or tons of like, not tons of Top Chef people because I was only the second person to do it, but there were lots of chefs that I knew, and it's weird because right after winning that, it was such a big show that like the 2 food festivals that I went to, I was like, people recognized me, which was, I was 24 and I was, it was like all brand new. So, so yeah, I would just go to these different events, and then there's parties at night where you go to this bar and all these chefs have signed this thing, and it's called Belly. I forgot the name, but like, so then there's all these different events, and you've got like an itinerary to go to all these different things. And the 2 events that I did a dinner with the chef at the Little Nell, where we did this sort of like coordinated. He's a chef in New York now. He's got a place called Charlie Bird. He's a great chef, and we so we did this dinner together, but we planned it weeks before. We were doing like pheasant breast. We were doing like pretty cool stuff, and so we did this dinner together. And then I had this challenge, which I think every winner of Top Chef does now, where you're paired in a team and you go against Jacques Pepin. And so it was me and Gail Simmons against Jacques Pepin and Jacques Pepin's partner, and Jacques Pepin always wins, even though our dish was better. I'm not like saying that. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that like we had to cook these like ribeyes and stuff, and it's great because it's in front of a whole audience, and Jacques Pepin's hilarious, and like you're sort of doing this whole thing for the crowd, and then that's it. And then I sort of went home, but it's like throughout the night, there's lots of different events that you sort of, there's the grand tasting, which is where all these people have these giant booths, but those are never my favorites. It's always like the specialized sponsored events. So like Barilla Pasta will have a party in a beautiful mansion where they'll get a famous chef, Rocco DiSpirito will be making pasta for everybody, or, something like that, where they just sort of have. And then there's always these late night parties that are really just for chefs and not press chefs and like people that work for Food and Wine and people in food media. But, and then there's always a sponsor for that. And they're, giving you seafood, and they're giving, it's just, there's food everywhere. There's booze everywhere. And then I also did a charity poker game with Sam Talbot and like Govind Armstrong and Tom Colicchio, which there's a couple pictures sort of somewhere floating around, and me and Tom Colicchio, I think, are both wearing cowboy hats for some reason. It's very weird.
Very Aspen.
But so Aspen is crazy. Aspen is great. It's weird. I think my experience is different than a person that just gets tickets and goes, but it's lovely. I mean, you really see all those chefs everywhere. And there's also one party, usually the second night, that's at the top of the mountain, so you have to take the ski lift up there, and that's always fun because there's always somebody fun cooking there, and all the publishers of Food Wine Magazine, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I mean, a pasta party in a mansion sounds like the best situation ever.
Yeah, like
there was one time, I think maybe it was the last time I went there, on the first night, Jose Andreas was cooking at some party, and he was making paellas. And also, like, me and a bunch of Top Chef people were just sort of sitting in front of him, and he made us all like this big sandwich with a baguette and just like cut it into chunks. So it's like stuff like that happens a lot, where you're just around all these people that you love, and they're feeding you, you're feeding them. It's a lot of fun.
Kate, we gotta go. Justin's got to get his cowboy hat out of Hawk anyway. So
yeah.
Last time we were in Aspen, my husband bought a cowboy hat. So.
That's me too. I bought a cowboy hat when I went there.
Did you go to Kimosabe?
I ended up giving it to my friend. Yeah, of course.
Of course.
That's where you get it.
Yep.
And I paid a stupid amount of money for a hat that I wore once or twice.
Yeah.
Yep. He has worn it once.
But they branded my initials in it.
In
fact. So my friend Erica owns that hat now.
I got my initials in it, and then went out and had a few too many drinks, and then went back and had them put my dog's name in the hat. So I've got everything just burned into the hat.
Nice. I like it.
Is your hat
a dangerous place to go?
Is your hat in Atlanta, or have you also got it in storage in Aspen?
I have mine here. So the background story here is my husband is a ridiculous human being. I love him. He's the best, but he thinks he is the bougiest person in the world. And we are just normal, average people. And we went to Kimosabe, bought this hat, but he didn't want to take it on the plane with him. So we made friends with the woman that sold us the hat. And he said, do you have like a hat locker here? Like, can I store my hat here? And she was like, no, like that's not how it works. And he was like, but like I could pay for like a hat storage thing. And she was like, no, like we just don't have hat storage. And he was like, okay, but I don't want to bring it on the plane, and I'm coming back in July. Like, how can I figure this out? So she just took the hat home with her. And so we're going to go back in July for a friend's wedding and get the hat back from her. Luckily, she still works there. We have confirmed that we can get the hat, but like, it's quite the gamble to take on like a $700 hat.
God, Justin's
That's so silly.
So ridiculous.
He thinks he's like the Wolf of Wall Street. And
no, he does.
Hat storage.
He does. But you.
He should start a hat storage business.
Just leave
and
your hat
everything.
in
He was like, I think I just like created a new business for them. I was like, I mean, I don't think you did. I don't think they're going to lean in on this, but maybe.
I could see Justin like really putting the hard sell on me, and I'm like, well, I'll take it home.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. It is at her house, which is just so weird.
Oh, God, that's fantastic. Well, Ilan, this has been the best. Better than I could have hoped for.
Thank you for having me.
What a wonderful
That's
hour.
wonderful. It's already an hour?
I know. It's already.
Oh, good. The time was flying for you, too? Good news.
Yeah.
No, it flew.
This is just
it flew. I had no idea.
amazing. All right, so on the docket, we've got to get Knife Fight back. Mm-hmm. I think we could do it on YouTube.
Yes.
I mean, there's a market for this.
There's a lot of money on YouTube too.
We gotta get that back.
Yeah.
We gotta go to Aspen Food and Wine. I gotta go on a year you're going so I can coattail it in with you.
Yes.
Yep.
You did give us that tip.
You're right. Right.
Yep.
We're with you. We're sous chefs.
Go with the chef. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that's it.
Those are the two, and we got to get your son on the ketchup. So those are our 3 takeaways from this podcast.
And next time you go to Aspen, don't give your hat away. Ask Brie at Kimosabe to store it for you.
Yeah, this is insider
they'll
knowledge.
Insider hat trade.
Yeah.
Way to bring it back. Way to bring it back to the day
Full
trading
circle.
world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Penny Lane.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It was great to meet you.
I appreciate it. Definitely. It was great meeting you, too.
We'll see you in Aspen.
Wait till we do this in Aspen.
Exactly.
Yes, we'll see you in
Glad
Aspen.
we're on the same page.
By accessing this podcast, you acknowledge that the Penny Lane podcast makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional or financial advice. Unless specifically stated otherwise, the Penny Lane podcast does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement. The third-party materials or content of any third-party site referenced in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions, standards, or policies of the Penny Lane podcast. The Penny Lane podcast assumes no responsibility or liability for the accuracy or completeness of the content contained in third-party materials or on third-party sites referenced in this podcast, or the compliance with applicable laws of such materials and/or links referenced herein.